He woke up in a hospital 10 days later, unable to speak. His jaw was wired shut. Every bone in his face was shattered. And when they finally told him what happened, when his mother delivered the news that would haunt him forever, Trevor Reese Jones asked the question that would define the rest of his life. Why did I survive when everyone else died? This is the story of the man who lived through the crash that killed Princess Diana. But surviving, as you're about to discover, isn't always the same as living. August 30th, 1997, Paris, the Ritz Hotel. Trevor Reese Jones stands in the lobby, scanning the crowd like he's been trained to do. He's a former paratrooper, served in Northern Ireland, seen real combat, but nothing in his military training prepared him for this, protecting Princess Diana from an army of paparazzi who would do anything, risk anything, for a single photograph. Diana and Dodi Fayed have just finished dinner. Outside, the mob is waiting, motorcycles revving, cameras ready. It's a feeding frenzy, and Trevor knows tonight is going to be bad. He's watched this relationship unfold over the summer, the yacht trips in the Mediterranean, the stolen moments of privacy that were never really private. He's seen how desperate the photographers have become, and tonight, they're more aggressive than ever. Dodi makes a decision. They'll use a decoy. 2 cars will leave from the front, drawing the paparazzi away. Diana and Dodi will slip out the back. It's a good plan. It should work. But then Dodi chooses the driver, Henri Paul, the Ritz's acting head of security. Trevor doesn't know him well, but something feels off. Henri seems too relaxed, too confident. He's been drinking at the hotel bar earlier that evening, though nobody realizes just how much. What Trevor doesn't know, what he can't possibly know, is that Henri Paul's blood alcohol level is 3 times the legal limit. He's also taking prescription antidepressants mixed with tranquilizers that should never be combined with alcohol. The man about to drive Princess Diana through the streets of Paris is a walking time bomb. And Trevor, trained to spot threats, misses it completely. They get into the car, a black Mercedes S280. Trevor takes the front passenger seat. Diana and Dodi slide into the back. And here's the detail that will haunt Trevor forever. In the rush, in the adrenaline, nobody puts on their seatbelts. Nobody except Trevor. It's muscle memory from his military days. He doesn't even think about it. He just clicks it into place. That single action will save his life and leave him drowning in guilt for decades. 12:20 a.m. The Mercedes pulls away from the Ritz. Within seconds, the paparazzi spot them. The plan has failed. Motorcycles swarm like wasps. Henri Paul accelerates 60 miles per hour, 70, 80, through red lights, weaving through traffic. Trevor knows this is wrong. Every instinct screams at him to tell Henri to slow down. But Dodi wants to escape. Diana just wants peace. And Trevor, the trained bodyguard whose job is to make the hard calls, stays silent. They enter the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, 12:23 a.m. Henri Paul is doing over 90 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. He's drunk, he's drugged, and he's lost control. The Mercedes clips a white Fiat Uno, swerves violently, and slams into the 13th pillar of the tunnel at full speed. The sound is apocalyptic. Metal tearing, glass exploding, the car crumples like paper. Henri Paul dies instantly, his chest crushed by the steering wheel. Dodi is killed on impact, his body thrown forward with such force that his injuries are catastrophic. Diana is trapped in the back seat, critically wounded, asking for help. And Trevor's face smashes into the dashboard with such violence that his skull essentially disintegrates. Every facial bone is broken, his brain is injured. But his heart keeps beating. The seatbelt saved him. He doesn't remember the crash. His last memory is getting into the car outside the Ritz. Everything after that is gone, erased. Some merciful part of his brain decided he doesn't need to remember the sound of Diana's voice calling for help. He doesn't need to remember the moment of impact. He doesn't need to remember any of it. But that doesn't stop him from trying. For years, he'll try to remember.
Try to find some clue in the darkness of his shattered memory, but there's nothing there. Just a void where the worst moment of his life should be. By the time the first emergency responders arrive, the paparazzi are already there. But they're not helping. They're taking photographs, flashing cameras at the wreckage, at Diana, at the dying and the dead. One witness later says he saw a photographer get beaten by bystanders who were disgusted by what they were seeing. This is what Diana's life had become. Even in her dying moments, she wasn't allowed dignity. Diana is conscious, trapped, injured so severely that her heart has been displaced inside her chest. A firefighter named Xavier Gourmelon reaches her first. He hears her say 4 words. "My God, what's happened?" Then she goes into cardiac arrest. He performs CPR. Her heart starts beating again. They rush her to the hospital, and for a brief moment, the doctors think maybe, just maybe, she'll survive. But the internal damage is too severe. At 4 a.m., Princess Diana is pronounced dead. She's 36 years old. Trevor Rees-Jones is in a coma in the same hospital. The doctors don't think he'll make it. His injuries are too severe. His face is destroyed, his brain is swollen. But somehow, impossibly, he clings to life. Day after day, his body fights. His mother sits by his bedside waiting, praying, wondering if her son will ever wake up. 10 days later, he does, but he can't speak. His jaw is wired shut, his face a mass of surgical bandages. The doctors have rebuilt his skull using titanium plates and bone grafts. He doesn't look like himself anymore. He doesn't feel like himself. And then his mother tells him, "Diana is dead, Dodie is dead, Henri Paul is dead. You're the only one who survived." Trevor's world collapses. He's a bodyguard. His job, his only job, was to keep them safe, and he failed. It doesn't matter that he was unconscious. It doesn't matter that he couldn't have known Henri Paul was drunk. It doesn't matter that Diana herself chose not to wear a seatbelt. In Trevor's mind, he had one responsibility, and he failed. The guilt is crushing. The survivor's guilt. Why me? Why did I get to live when the most beloved woman in the world died on my watch?
The media won't leave him alone. Everyone wants to know what happened in that tunnel. What were Diana's last words? What did she say about the paparazzi? Was it really an accident, or was it something more sinister? Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodie's father, is already on television claiming it was murder. That British intelligence assassinated Diana because she was pregnant with his son's child. That the royal family couldn't tolerate the future king's mother having a baby with an Egyptian Muslim. But Trevor has no answers. He can't remember, and the world doesn't want to believe him. Conspiracy theorists call him a liar. They say he's protecting the royal family. They say he's been paid off. They say he's part of the cover-up. The truth is simpler and more tragic. Trevor genuinely doesn't remember. The trauma erased it. And no amount of pressure, no amount of money, no amount of desperate pleading from Mohammed Al-Fayed will bring those memories back. Over the next year, Trevor undergoes surgery after surgery. They reconstruct his face using old photographs as a guide. Titanium plates, dental implants, skin grafts. He has to relearn how to eat, how to speak properly, how to look at himself in the mirror without seeing a stranger. Every surgery is a reminder. Every doctor's appointment is a reminder. Every news story about Diana is a reminder. He survived, but at what cost? Mohammed Al-Fayed wants Trevor to remember, needs him to remember. He pays for Trevor's medical care, offers support, but there's always pressure underneath. Remember, Trevor. Remember what really happened. Remember who killed my son. But Trevor can't give him what he wants. He can't confirm the conspiracy theories. He can't say he saw mysterious white cars or flashing lights designed to blind the driver. He can't say he saw MI6 agents because he didn't see any of that. He doesn't remember anything.
In 2000, Trevor makes a decision that will cost him everything. He writes a book, The Bodyguard's Story. He tells the truth as he knows it. He confirms that nobody was wearing seatbelts except him. He confirms that Henry Paul was drunk and drugged. He confirms that there was pressure to outrun the paparazzi at any cost. And he says clearly, unequivocally, that he saw no evidence of murder, no conspiracy, just a tragic, preventable accident caused by a drunk driver and a desperate desire to escape photographers. Mohammed Al-Fayed is furious. He wanted Trevor to support his murder theory. He needed Trevor to validate his grief, his rage, his belief that his son was killed by the British establishment. When Trevor refuses, when he sticks to the evidence, Al-Fayed turns on him, calls him ungrateful, calls him a traitor. The man who paid for Trevor's medical care now wants nothing to do with him. Trevor disappears from public life. He can't handle it anymore. The spotlight, the questions, the conspiracy theorists who see him as either a liar or a dupe. He moves back to England, takes a quiet job in security, tries to build something resembling a normal life. He gets married, has children, does everything he can to distance himself from that night in Paris. But you can't outrun your past, not when your past is the death of Princess Diana.
Friends say he struggles with PTSD, with depression, with nightmares where his body remembers what his mind has forgotten. The sound of screeching tires, the feeling of impact, the darkness that swallowed everything. He wakes up in cold sweats, his heart pounding, his wife trying to calm him down. It's okay, Trevor. You're safe. But he's never really safe. Not from the memories, not from the guilt, not from the questions that will never have answers. In 2006, Trevor is called to testify at the official inquest into Diana's death. He sits in a courtroom and answers the same questions he's been asked 1,000 times. No, he doesn't remember the crash. No, he saw no evidence of murder. No, Diana wasn't pregnant. No, there was no conspiracy. The lawyers press him. The judge presses him. Mohammed Al-Fayed's legal team tries desperately to get him to remember something, anything that supports their theory. But there's nothing. Just a man with a shattered memory and a burden he'll carry forever. The inquest concludes in 2008. The verdict: unlawful killing due to the grossly negligent driving of Henry Paul and the paparazzi who pursued them. Not murder, not conspiracy. Just a drunk driver, a high-speed chase, and a failure to wear seatbelts. It's exactly what Trevor has been saying for years. It should be closure. It should be the end. But for Trevor, there is no end. There is just the knowledge that he survived when Princess Diana didn't. Here's what keeps him up at night. The what-ifs. What if he'd insisted everyone wear seatbelts? What if he'd refused to let Henry Paul drive? What if he'd convinced Dodie to stay at the hotel? What if he'd spoken up when his instincts told him something was wrong? These questions don't have answers. They just circle endlessly in his mind, a prison made of guilt and regret. Some people call him a hero, the man who told the truth, the man who refused to participate in conspiracy theories, the man who survived against impossible odds. But Trevor doesn't see himself as a hero. Heroes save people. Trevor lived while Diana died. That's not heroism. That's just terrible, cruel luck. Today, Trevor Rees-Jones is in his mid-50s. He lives privately, quietly, far from the cameras and the questions. He rarely gives interviews. He rarely speaks about Diana. Not because he doesn't care, not because he's hiding something, but because there's nothing left to say. He told his truth. The world either believed him or didn't. And either way, Diana is still gone. But think about this. Trevor Rees-Jones didn't just survive a car crash. He survived the weight of being the only one who lived when the most photographed woman in the world died. He survived the conspiracy theories, the accusations, the guilt,
the surgeries, the shattered face in the shattered memories. He survived Muhammad al-Fayed's rage and the media's endless questions. He survived the nightmares and the PTSD, in the crushing knowledge that maybe, just maybe, if he'd done something different, Diana would still be alive. That's not just survival. That's carrying a burden that would break most people. And he's carried it for nearly 28 years.
Here's the final question, the one nobody wants to ask. Was Trevor Rees-Jones really the lucky one? Was being the sole survivor really a gift, or was it a curse? To live with the memory loss, the guilt, the unanswered questions, the knowledge that you were there, you were supposed to protect her, and you failed. Some say the dead are the ones who escape. They don't have to carry anything. They don't have to live with the what-ifs. They don't have to face the cameras or the conspiracy theorists or the endless, crushing weight of survival. Trevor Rees-Jones is a man defined by one night, one crash, one failure. He got into a car in Paris in 1997, and in many ways, he never got out. The man who survived is also the man who lost everything: his face, his memory, his peace, his anonymity, his ability to live without being haunted by the ghost of a princess who just wanted to be free. This is the story of the bodyguard who lived when Princess Diana died. The man who carries the weight of that night every single day. The man who would trade places with her if he could. The man who survived the unsurvivable and discovered that sometimes living is the hardest part. Trevor Rees-Jones, the bodyguard, the survivor, the man who failed to save her, and the man who will never, ever forgive himself for it.